Hi, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Boston Sports Nuts. I'm here with my good friend Jim Russo.
What?
Ken Berman.
Great to be here, Paul.
Boy, you don't sound like it.
Oh no, I'm excited to be here. You kidding me?
Well, we're gonna fire
your
up.
name?
We'll get Paul Izzo. We're gonna fire up the hot stove this week and talk a little baseball, a little Boston Celtics, a little New England Patriots. Might get into the Bruins a little bit, but
You're gonna need a lot of coal for baseball.
yes. So the big story today, obviously, is the signing by the New York Mets of Juan Soto, the former New York Yankee, Washington National, who signed a 15-year, $765 million contract at the age of 26, which is going to average out to $51 million a year, almost $1 million a week. That's Ken Berman money.
Yeah, right. That's $750 million. He invests that right. He'll be all set.
Yes. So there's so much to unravel here about this, but
Wow.
I think for our listeners, the big story is he's not going to be a Boston Red Sox. And I'm going to start with, to my left here, Jim. Any thoughts about the non-signing of Juan Soto?
I'm not that disappointed, even though he's a phenomenal player, because I never expected it to happen. And to be fair to them, if you believe the reports, they made significant offers, over $600 million. And my take on this was the Yankees or the Mets are just going to outbid everybody. Yeah. And we heard reports, again, I don't know if they're true, but Steve Cohen basically said, I'll go 50 or 15 or whatever he said, 15. Higher than anybody else. Yeah. So when you got a Steve Cohen there, who is extremely wealthy and willing to spend the money and pay the tax to try to bring Mets fans a championship, I don't think you're going to win that bidding war, even if you're serious. And I do believe the Sox were serious this time. So, no, I wasn't surprised, and I'm not disappointed. So let's just pivot, to me, to what we can realistically do when Steve Cohen's not in the bidding.
Yeah, like, is he all done bidding? I doubt it, because, I mean, if you got $750 million, you probably got another $250 million hanging around to put into other places. But I never thought they were going to get him. I never thought they would be the highest bidder to get one. So, and if I'm going to go like management, overall, logical, I don't think if I had that kind of money and owned the team that I would give one guy 15 years at the age of 26. Because in my opinion, he's going to have 6 or 7 really good years. He'll have a bunch of average years, and I think he'll stink for a few of them at $51 million a year. I don't know. And then, by the way, you got to hope that the 6 or 7 years are consecutive while you're building your team that's going to be the championship team. You got to hope he doesn't get injured. Paul, you said to me earlier today before the show, what if he pulls Mo Vaughn, slips on the stairs and breaks his ankle in the first game?
Mm-hmm.
It's just 15 years. This is out of control. Who gives someone 15 years? That no one even plays 15 years, and he's already 26. I don't even get it. It's crazy.
Well, I have 2 very harsh points of criticism on this whole story. Number one, I'm highly, highly critical of the Boston Red Sox because I don't think they should have gotten a bidding war for this guy to begin with.
Right.
The Red Sox have had this pattern going back 20 years where they go into their little cocoon and let players walk. Then they regret the decision and they start throwing money around.
Right.
They did it after they lost John Lester, and then they panicked and signed Pablo Sandoval and Hanley Ramirez.
David Price.
And I'm not sure about the timing on the Price one, but you're right.
Well, he was eventually his replacement.
Yeah. They've done this before. Look, they committed a few years ago to we're going to build from within. And honestly, although I'm still in the show me phase as a fan, they started to develop some players. They've got some guys dotted around the lineup that maybe they could build around. And to go and take almost 30% of your budget and direct it at a guy who just was on a better team and didn't deliver a championship in the case of the New York Yankees, and then commit to that 15 years, I think was foolhardy, and I think they dodged a bullet not signing him. The reality is, for what Soto is going to put into his pocket each year, if you read the reports that the Red Sox offered $700 million.
Ooh, I didn't hear that.
Okay, if you believe that, Sean McAdam reported that.
Oh,
Then Soto is taking less money to play in New York City, where they have much higher tax rates, much higher state income tax, much more expensive standard of living. It's going to be less money in his pocket. I think he wanted to stay in New York. It's got more pizzazz, more jazz, whatever you want to call it. My second point of criticism is to the fans of the Boston Red Sox and to the pundits that are being critical of the Red Sox because they didn't go all the way to the finish line.
They're not all in.
They didn't go all the way.
Wiggy said they're not all in.
Look, I buy stuff on eBay. I buy baseball cards. Even if I desperately want that mint condition 1952 Johnny Pesky card, there's a point at which I will not go any higher. Okay? When it gets to the point where some crazy guy in Minnesota is willing to spend $700 for that card, and I'm only willing to spend X less than $700, then I'm not going to buy that card. And you can't. The Red Sox don't have unlimited money, and look, they have a lot of money, but they don't have unlimited funds. They have to stick to something like a budget. And the fact that Steve Cohen is willing to spend whatever it takes to get a guy at basically what is an auction. It's like an art auction. The player comes out on the stage and everybody bids. And the fact that you're not willing to go all the way to be the highest bidder does not make you insincere in your effort to acquire that asset.
Correct.
So anybody who thinks that the Red Sox were less than all in if they were willing to offer in the $600 to $700 million range to land this ball player is just being silly. And
yeah,
of course they were all in.
I agree with that. The Red Sox tried, given who they are, I think they went to their limit. And if it's $700 million, to me, that's a little beyond. But what do I know? And I think that there are other options out there pitching for them to make big offers to people that will help the team because, you know, Soto is a once-in-a-generation talent. I think his greatest talent is his pitch control. He does not swing at bad pitches. That is extremely difficult in this era when pitchers can make the ball move so much.
He's walking like 125
It's
times a
really,
year.
really hard to do. You know, so people look, you know, why did that guy swing at that? Because when it was here, it looked like a strike. And then when it got to, you know, he started swinging. So, but I want to push back a little, Ken, on something you said.
Yeah.
And that is this. As Bill Belichick said, you do business as business is being done. Right. I have zero problem with Steve Cohen spending this kind of money. I have zero problem with a player getting this kind of money. The money is out there. It's going to the billionaire owner or the billionaire player. I personally don't care unless they write me a check. If I had to make a choice, maybe I'd want it to go to the guy I want to watch play. Okay? Juan Soto is a once-in-a-generation. This guy can do this. So he's doing it. There's nothing.
Steve Cohen can do it.
Steve Cohen.
There is nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it. I just, management-wise, I would never do it.
Yeah, but management-wise, with unlimited
I
money,
think they're going to regret it.
Is
I
different.
think it's going to cost them.
Yeah, but do you regret the Celtics signing Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown?
I was going to get to this point.
But it's not 15 years.
Wait a minute. The Boston Celtics, our beloved Celtics, okay?
Love them.
Are into the second apron of the NBA salary cap. That has penalties.
Next year after Tatum gets his contract.
But that has penalties what they can do. They lose their mid-level exception. They're willing to do it. This is analogous, as Paul brought up, to Cohen. He's got the money. He's on the highest level you can get in baseball of playing penalties. He's willing to do it.
Yeah.
Tough. Now, the beauty of
God bless
baseball
him.
to me is this. You can have a player like Soto and not win.
Right.
You better have pitching. Because Soto had a heck of a year. A really, really good year. I think he made Judge happy, but they didn't win at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's made the decision that there's going to be X amount of years where it's ridiculous money for his output. I believe that. I just don't think you give. Nobody has 15-year careers. Never mind already being
Well,
in the league.
I want to push back on that a little too, Ken, is that today, with athletes working out the way they are, Tom Brady, we saw, LeBron James, these guys are dedicated to their physical health now in ways which we just on another show talked about Ted Williams and Ty Cobb. They never dreamed of doing what these guys did. Mm-hmm. No way. Do I think it's going to work for 15 years? No. So pretend that he's getting 70 for 10 or whatever the math
well,
is.
that's what I was just going to say.
That's the way he looks at it.
Right. That's exactly what it is. He's going to pay him 70-something million a year for less years.
And Jaylen Brown is going to end up at 60 at some point. Jason Tatum is going to end up.
But they're 4-year contracts.
High
5
60s.
years.
Yeah,
4 or 5
I know.
Years. And then you're done with them. Hey, listen, God bless him. He's got the money. Spend it that way. Good. I just think they're going to regret it. Like, I heard a good story about, how the Rams are, they won that Super Bowl a few years ago. They went all in. And I heard Boomer Sires are talking. They're paying for it since then because they signed a bunch of guys, went way over, and then had to let them all go.
But
They're
see,
7-6
Cohen
now.
doesn't have that problem.
Yeah, they don't have a hard cap.
I know. They don't have a hard cap.
They don't have that problem. They can go into the luxury tax. This is only going to hurt him if Steve Cohen says, I'm not spending any more money. So maybe if he wins a World Series, which is obviously his goal, he might say, I'm done.
Yeah.
We're fine now.
Possible. Yeah.
Maybe in 5 years I'll start spending again. We don't know.
Yeah.
It's his money. But to him, it's like, no.
And you're right about baseball.
I could
Jim.
go get Ohtani
It's
next
really
year.
one hitter that wins you a World Series.
Yeah, for me, I want to get back to another thing you said. It's really about the Red Sox to me. That's what I'm interested in. The Red Sox have morphed back and forth in the in the 1990s. They went through a cheapskate phase.
Yep.
Then they brought in Dan Duquette, and he convinced them to sign Manny Ramirez to an 8-year, $20 million contract, which a lot of money in 2001.
Yeah.
$20 million a
per
year.
season.
That was a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
And they got Pedro Martinez, and they locked him up. And then they brought in the new regime, and they went all in with the Schilling signing and picking up guys and trading Garcia Parra. I mean, they were literally all in.
Yeah.
And then they kind of dialed it back.
Yeah.
And in 2013, we got that weird, we're going to get mid-level guys like Mike Napoli and put those guys together.
Yeah.
And that worked for 1 year.
1 year.
Johnny Gomes. And then they went back to spending when they lost Lester. They got Sandoval and Ramirez. And then they said, oh, we're going to go back to being tightwads again and let Mookie Betts, a guy that you developed through your farm system. That's where you spend the money.
That's
a guy
the
that's
killer.
proven to do well in your market. That's where they should spend the money. And if they had signed Soto, I would have lost my bleep because there's a guy that you're spending money on who's obviously just in it for the money versus giving it 3 or 4 years ago, was like 4 or 5 now, to Mookie Betts, who liked it in Boston, was willing to stay, they say. He said he was willing to stay.
Great player.
It's just
I think the Red Sox.
stick with one way of doing business
Yeah, I
for
agree
10
with
years
you.
at least.
As far
stick
as
with
the,
that way.
as far as the Red Sox, to me, historically, they've undervalued their own players.
Yep.
And can we just get realistic for a minute? Number one, you gotta. It is worth something to say that a player can play in Boston or New York or Philly.
Yep.
It really is. The East Coast corridor, whatever you want to call it, that's worth something. So when John Lester proves he can do that, and in the postseason, that's worth more money, not less. And would they stop with the hometown discounts? You're asking guys that grew up in Georgia and California to take a hometown discount for Boston.
Yeah.
So one thing about sports, different from somebody that maybe takes less money for a different type of, it's baseball. They're going to go play baseball. They're not going to go from one profession to another. So to them, there is no hometown discount. They're not from here. There may be a weather discount, if anything, and we don't get it. Miami gets it,
L.A. gets
and
it.
LA gets it.
Yeah.
Okay? So you got to pay as much, if not more, to keep your own players. And as Paul pointed out, in the long run, you'll save money because their reaction They could have had Lester far cheaper than they got David Price to make the left-handed far cheaper, and Lester proved he could play here. They could have got Mookie
was a better
Betts
pitcher than
for
Price at that
far
time.
cheaper than they offered Juan Soto. Now, Soto, to me, could play here. He played in New York. He was great. He's not going to have any problem if he
But
played
it's twice
here.
the money.
But it's twice the money.
And
Exactly.
that means you can't sign some other guy.
Right.
Exactly. You could have signed some other guy.
Yeah.
Mookie's contract would look good already by now, wouldn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
but we see, I said at the time that they lost Mookie is that contract's going to be an old contract in 4 or 5 years, and it
Yeah.
already is.
Yeah.
The money is skyrocketed. As far as the whole question about is the money getting ridiculous? No,
It just keeps going. And
No,
going.
it just keeps going
There's no
up.
bubble, right? It's never going to pop.
As long as the money's there, look, baseball is interesting. It is said frequently that big market teams have an advantage. They do, but it's not what you would think it would be.
No.
No, not at all.
You see it all the time. You got a Kansas City sneaking into the playoffs. You got a Texas sneaking into the playoffs. Cleveland made a deep run. You get a hot pitcher. You get a guy who's banged up on a great team. You get a guy who goes in a slump. Mookie Betts has had postseason slumps where he didn't contribute anything. The Dodgers have been far and away the best team in baseball the last 5 years. They didn't win a title other than the COVID year until this past year,
Yeah, they won 2 out of 5.
right? But they could have won. I think a Dodger fan is probably saying, why
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
we win more?
Yeah.
Yeah, it might
they,
be.
Right?
On paper, they had the best team.
It's hard to win in baseball. It's really hard to win.
Yeah.
Steve Cohen, I'm sure there's somebody saying to him, you realize signing this guy doesn't guarantee anything if we don't pitch and we don't field up the middle?
Now, you brought up the Dodgers. Let's talk about them for a second in relation to the Soto signing. If you're Cohen and you want to win this thing, you got to look at the Dodgers. You got to get by them in the National League to make the World Series, okay? And one thing we've seen from the Dodgers, they don't stop.
They just do
They do not stop. They got Mookie Betts, and then they went out and got Freddie Freeman. They didn't pay a cheap dollar for Freddie Freeman. He's a great player. Then they get Ohtani,
Yeah.
who's the best player in the game.
Yeah.
They lost 2 or 3 starters, including Kershaw, who's not what he was, but he's still one of their starters, before the playoffs. They had to pitch bullpen games in a playoff series where you get days off,
Yeah.
And they were able to win it because they never stop. And I don't know if they were in on the Soto thing. Maybe they said this is the line we can't go to. But that's not to say
Didn't they
that.
already have one big signing this
But that's
offseason?
not to say. Yeah, I mean, I don't know this year, but last year they got Glasnow from Tampa Bay, and people went, "Oh my God, he got hurt."
Yep.
But they don't stop. You've got to beat them, and they're going to be tough to beat, as you guys have pointed out. But there's no guarantee that they'll win because the regular season of 162 is a far different animal than first a 5-game series and then a 7.
right.
I think the years the Dodgers lost, I think at least 2 of those were in the 5-game series. I could be wrong, but I think 2 of them
Buster
were in the
Olney,
5.
I heard him this morning say, this is great that the Mets got Soto, but they need front-end pitching.
Right.
They don't have front-end pitching. You're
Yeah.
not going to win
Yeah.
in baseball with front-end starters.
By the way, will they have an empty seat this year?
Probably not.
Yeah.
And their TV contracts, I don't know if they're up or not, but
So let's move on to the Red Sox. Apart from Soto, they signed Aroldis Chapman, the fireballing left-hander who walks people, which is going to be interesting.
it's a
late in
realistic
games.
assessment.
Yeah, he was sort of 10 years ago. He was sort of the first guy who consistently clocked in the 100, 101,
Yeah.
102.
Yeah.
He still throws pretty hard.
Yeah, he's over 97.
They lost Kenley Jansen, the Red Sox closer, which I think is addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
That guy was painful to watch and not that effective at times.
Right.
So where are the Red Sox now? Looking for pitching, Jim? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, I think now that Soto's out of the way, some of the dominoes will start to fall, to use the cliche. But I do think it's true. Teams can pivot to other players. I think the Red Sox are looking at the top free agent pitchers, Burns and Fried, and The guy from the White Sox is a possible trade. I think they'll look
Oh, wait a
to-
minute. Didn't the Dodgers sign Snell?
Yeah,
Yes.
Blake.
Yeah,
Blake
they don't
Snell?
stop. They signed
Okay,
Blake Snell.
sorry.
That's
I knew
right.
they signed someone
Yeah,
big.
they don't stop. I think the other thing, the Red Sox will look at is balancing their lineup a little bit, which Soto would not have helped with. Which is they are heavily left-handed dominant with Duran, Devers, Wilbur Abreu, and Cassis. They're left-handed dominant.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Trevor Story can play a whole year because we know when healthy
Highly
he's
doubtful.
an excellent defensive player and he can hit. So I think I think it's pitching. And as far as Chapman, I don't think he might not be the closer, but he certainly doesn't hurt, and he does walk people. He still throws over 97, which makes him the hottest thrower on the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I just remember one thing about Chapman. I don't even know what game it was, but I remember watching Chapman pitch as a lefty to Devers when Devers was young.
Yeah, one of the greatest home runs.
And he
I've
hit a
ever
home
seen.
run off him, which I it was
Opposite
the left
field, yeah.
Yeah, last thing I ever expected. Chapman can throw. Listen, you get a 97-mile-an-hour lefty in your pen, and you got to get a lefty out.
Yeah,
Not bad to have him.
yeah.
So, the Red Sox lost Tyler O'Neill.
Right.
That's one of their power hitters, but that
And
was
right-handed.
that was a bit of a,
Right.
struck out a lot.
Yep.
Did not, didn't project going forward
Right,
to be
right.
that good. A little surprised the Orioles went after him. I was thinking back. The Orioles have had 2 great regular seasons in a row where they flamed out early in the postseason.
Lost in the first round both years, right?
Yeah, and that's got to be a big disappointment to them.
Well, can I just, if you're an Orioles fan, the Tyler O'Neill signing to me is disappointing because that means Santander is not coming back. He hit over 40 home runs for them, and he's a valuable piece to
They're not
use.
going to pay him what he's going to
They're not going to pay him what he's going to get, and Tyler O'Neill is your less expensive alternative.
Yeah. All right, Paul, continue.
No, it's okay. So if you look at the Red Sox right now, they're the same team they had last year.
Yep.
If I'm the Red Sox, I stop promising fans they're going to make a big splash.
Yeah.
just
How about under promise,
just
over deliver?
don't insult everybody's intelligence. First of all, other than Soto, what is the big splash?
I don't know.
Is Henry Aaron Jr. out there somewhere and we just haven't heard of him?
Yeah.
You go out and you sign a Walker Buehler or a Nate Eovaldi or a Garrett Cole or one of these guys. Is that a big splash?
Nah.
Making a trade could be a big splash, but that always carries with it the risk of you giving up on a young player. See, what the Red Sox have to do is stick with their plan of becoming a big market Tampa Bay Rays. Here's the thing about Here's the thing about the Rays system that could work in Boston. What the Rays did was they figured out just get players. If it takes 44 pitchers, which actually they have done that,
Yes.
bring up a guy for 3 days
Right.
for a series because he matches up well against Kansas City.
Yeah.
Bring him up from the farm system. He pitches 2 out of 3 days in the 8th inning. Send him back down.
Right.
Bring him up for a month. Send him back down. The Red Sox could do that and be competitive, but they can spend a little bit more money, keep those guys a little bit longer.
Yep.
If they're not going to commit to bringing from the outside big money free agents like Juan Soto, like Shohei Ohtani, like whoever, the Japanese guy from last year, what was his name? Yamamoto. If they're not going to go that route anymore, keep the guys you develop longer and trust your farm system. Don't go blowing it all up by bringing in a Juan Soto and then saying, well, now we can't sign Casas. Now we can't sign this guy. Stick with a plan.
All right,
for 10 years.
Here's the plan.
Stick with it.
Here's the
Can't
plan.
do it, Paul.
Here's the plan.
Never happened. Never will.
Here's the plan. Now, I don't know if you guys would call this a splash, so I'll call it less than a splash. So an extensive ripple. Okay?
Like a wake.
Go all in on Corbin Burns. Or Fried if you think he's better. But I'll just say Corbin Burns. Number one, I don't think the Orioles are going to sign him. They are not going to match what he can get. Again, it's going to be very disappointing for Baltimore fans. Okay? The Red Sox can sign him. Go all in on him. You've now got your top of the rotation pitcher without giving up a prospect. Okay? That, to me, is number one priority. The other thing to me would be if you can sign another extensive ripple, a second baseman that can hit and is right-handed, do it. And the leading candidate right now would be Alex Bregman. Okay? Solid third baseman for the Astros all these years. Probably is not going to demand the huge deal at his age that these guys are getting now. Still going to get paid. And he's indicated he's willing to move to second base. And he's a good defensive player.
Yeah.
That solidifies their infield, okay? And gives some balance to the order, which I do think in today's baseball you need. To me, there was nothing more powerful this year than Soto, Judge, and then you go to L.A. and you've got Ohtani, Betts. It started out as Betts, Ohtani, but then when Betts, they switched it. Ohtani, Betts, Freeman. Left, right, right? Because with the rule, you can only bring in a reliever, and he's got to pitch 3.
Yep.
It makes a difference.
Yep.
Those are the things they can do with keeping most of their prospects. Now, if they could, I would not trade Jarren Duran. I think he's the most exciting player I've seen on the Red Sox in years. And
Who's the center fielder that played center field and shortstop?
Rafaela, the problem is he going to be able to hit? So you got to make a decision there. So that's what I would do.
Yeah.
All in on Corbin Burns, unless they think Fried is better.
Well, some writers are predicting that Burns is going to get in the $200 million range, which is a third of what they were willing to spend on Soto.
So why not? And arguably, he might be more valuable to the Red Sox than Soto.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that, but they could make an argument.
You know, it's the Red Sox, like last year, had a few players that piqued your interest a little bit, you know, that looked like they could become something. So, you know, like you said, Paul, just if they're never going to sign the Juan Sotos anymore because they're going to get outbid anyway. Because we all believe they were serious, just they weren't going to go $750 million serious. So just get, like you said, trust your system, pick out the guys that you think are going to be productive, and then sprinkle in what you got in. I don't know. I think that's their
But if
plan.
you're going to win it, you got to supplement them with some
pitching.
Well, the
great
older
pitching.
the older
need
I
pitching.
get, you know, and I'm involved in organizations, volunteering, and I've also been in private industry. I tend to simplify things in my mind. I think if I'm the owner of the Red Sox and I care about winning, which is a question, maybe they only care about money, I would say, get me to 84 wins and talk to me in July. You get me to a team that's in the hunt year after year.
Yeah.
And then come to me, like in 04, they went into ownership and they said, we want to trade Garcia Parra. You want to do what? We think this is the move to make. We want to go get this other guy. We want to get a Doug Mankiewicz to play first because we're struggling there defensively. The Red Sox don't have to make huge splashes. Right now, they're a 500 team, right?
Yeah.
Literally.
Right?
Literally.
They're a 500 team. They've lost a couple of pieces. They've replaced one of the.
By the way,
two of
how many
pieces.
wins you need to like get in the playoffs?
High 80s.
High 80s, and
Right.
they were at 80.
But getting from 81 to 88 is difficult.
yeah.
That's, you know,
Corbin Burns.
that's 14 games
Yeah.
over 500.
Yeah.
Right? That's difficult. You got to have 4 or 5 really good months to do that. And that's why you don't see teams like you do in the NBA with 80% winning percentage. There's no baseball team winning 125 games.
Right.
The margin between being in the playoffs and not is pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you guys a different question if we could get off the Red Sox for a minute.
Yeah.
Is it a problem for Major League Baseball in terms of fan interest and the game that we've seen starting pitchers kind of go by the wayside? Do you think it's a problem?
Yeah, big time problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a big time problem. I think part of the allure of baseball was, you know, when
The matchup.
when Clemens was with the Yankees, Clemens versus Pedro in the playoffs, you know, that was huge. You know, you had the fact he pitched for the Red Sox, but even if he didn't, he's a multi-Cy Young Award winner.
Clemens versus Gooden in 86.
Yeah.
Clemens versus Gooden. I remember going to a game in '86. Clemens' big breakout year in Yankee Stadium. Clemens versus Guidry. You know, the new
Yeah.
kid versus the great veteran for the Yankees. I think it's a huge problem. I've heard some radical solutions, but I think it's a huge problem.
Yeah, it's hard. I miss the days of looking forward to, let me say, who's the matchup on this game? Or if I'm going to the Red Sox game on June 23rd, because I got tickets a long time ago, I remember looking at the rotation and seeing, who am I getting? I wanted a great starting pitcher on both
who's
teams.
pitching tonight would always be the question.
Who's pitching
I mean, we
tonight?
go back to Vita Blue
Vita
versus
Blue.
Sonny Siebert
Oh,
in
yeah.
1971. That was
Huge game.
that was electric.
Yeah.
I think that there's two problems. You've alluded to one, which is the effect it's had on fan interest and the excitement of watching the game, and the whole idea of going to a game and seeing an opener is kind of ridiculous. But I think it's also screwed up the economics of the game a little bit, because when you look at a guy to be one of your horses as a starting pitcher, you're really only getting 170 to 200 innings out of him.
Yeah, if you
you used to always, from your horse, get 250 to 300.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that means you're going to have to get him from somewhere else.
Right.
And I'm sure that these teams have metrics like dollars per innings pitched. And it must be overwhelming to try to, how am I going to get 1,400 innings
Yeah, right.
out of a bunch of guys that can't even give me 200 innings?
Right.
It's just,
Well,
it's got to be really challenging.
Well, when we started watching baseball, there were 9 and 10 man pitching staffs. Nobody would do that today. You
No.
can't. 11, 12. I think there's a limit now. 13.
Well, I think another whole show could be some of the
13.
ideas that have been thrown around about
Yeah.
baseball. The golden at bat is another fun
I guess
one.
he withdrew from that.
What's that?
I guess he ditched that.
Who's he?
Manfred.
Oh,
there
but
was a
that's
lot
been
of
discussed.
pushback on that.
Yeah, in case
Yeah, the golden bat.
you folks haven't heard, there was a discussion about once per game allowing anybody on your team to come to bat. Anyway, all right, let's move on
Yeah.
to the hardwood.
The hardwood.
The Boston Celtics. Let's give 5 or 10 minutes on them. As we stand here today, they're still having a good season. They started 8-2. They went 8-2 in their next 10 games. They've gone 3-1 in their next 3 games. But there's some things to poke at a little bit.
Can I ask?
Why don't you go?
Can I ask Jim, what does he think about their defense this year, Paul? Because Jim, what do you think about their defense this year? Is that their problem?
Is that a rhetorical question, or you want that answered?
No,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim. You
All right. I think
that's the biggest.
I think they're having a really good year.
Yeah.
All right. But the defense is a problem. Now, we can take the attitude that they will come back after the All-Star break, gear it up like they did under Udoka, and they will once again become the defensive team they were in the playoffs last year. Okay? Right now, though, I find they are winning games because of their superior offense.
Talent.
I think there is really 2 problems with the team that Missoula needs to address. One is the defense. One part of it, they're just not in people's grills the way they were before.
Correct.
They're not bothering the ball enough. Too many people have too many easy passes to make. That's number one. And number 2, they're getting beat off the dribble a lot.
Yeah.
If you watch these games, which I know we all do. They're getting beat. Drew Holiday is getting beat to the point where I wonder if these nagging knee injuries are more than we know. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. I won't. But, he's not the same player he was. He's not shooting as well. So I think, and he's the second problem right now. His game must elevate. And we saw in the Memphis game the other night where Taylor Jenkins, a very good coach, and Missoula played a very nice game of chess for basketball fans. Jenkins came out and said, in a Marcus Smart type defense, Holiday, you're going to beat us. We're putting our shot blocking center on you, and he's not going to guard you till you catch the ball. And it worked. Holiday was 4 for whatever. 26, missed a ton of threes. Joe then countered with, we're going to go double big. We're now going to have a dunker instead of, that worked for a while. Then it didn't. He got away from it. And Jenkins ended up winning the game, an outstanding game. But the other factor to notice was when Joe got away from the double big, Peyton Pritchard finished the game,
Yeah, he
not
went
Jrue Holiday.
Yeah, he went with
And I think
double
that was
P.
significant.
Yeah.
He was shooting well too. So
He's
that,
been shooting well a lot.
right. And that
Holiday's
game
in the 30s, both, I think, field goal percentage and 3-point percentage.
Yeah,
and by the way, I love Jrue Holiday. These are just the facts right now. Hopefully he rebounds.
Well, the Celtics had a heavy schedule. They played recently
5 and 7.
5 games in 7 nights. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But now they're getting a big break where they got like 2 games in 11 nights.
Right.
So I want to see how they come out after that. Because I'm with you, Jim. The difference between this year and last year was playing on-ball defense, which doesn't seem to be the same this year. Now, to say that, I sound so picky because what's their record? Like something in 4? 17?
5.
No, it's
now.
19-5.
19-5.
Yeah.
They're 19-5. That's a pretty good record for the NBA. For any league, for anything.
Well, they're on a pace to have more wins than they had last year.
Yeah.
Here's the question, though, if the defense doesn't change. Personally, if you said, Jim, you have to say whether it's going to change, I say it is. So
I believe that too.
However, in whatever the sport, we see a history of these great offensive teams get into the playoffs and not win the championship. You saw it with the Air Coryell Chargers. You saw it with the Steve Nash 7 seconds to shoot Suns. And by the way, when my local team is out, I always root for these teams because they're the most fun to watch, but they usually don't win it. You've got to have some kind of defense down the stretch, especially.
What do you think, Paul?
Their
problems this year. What do you see as the difference?
I think they're tired. They played a lot of basketball last year.
I'll go with that too. Sorry, Jim.
A lot of their players.
Cut Jim off. Sorry.
Oh,
I didn't say anything.
Oh.
no. A lot of players played in the summer. Maybe Tatum didn't get in the games, but he had to fly to France. He had a practice. He played in some of it. Derek White played all summer. Jrue Holiday played all summer.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown worked his tail off all summer. Not to mention all the stuff they did in the spring. Played 19 postseason
Porzingis just
games.
came back after
Porzingis just
surgery.
came back. Holiday is a concern. You wonder if they'd consider playing him less or even trading him if they could. I don't know if they can or not. I don't pretend to understand all the ramifications there. But if he doesn't improve and Peyton Pritchard keeps playing the way he's playing, Pritchard's no longer, I talk about him a lot, I know that, but he's no longer that shiny little toy that entertains us. He's a legit NBA borderline star. He's arguably the best sixth man in the league right now. He scores a ton of points. He's an impact on the ball defender, and he drives opponents nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not. Sam Hauser's more in that other category, which Sam comes in, he makes a few shots, it's great, he goes out.
Hustles, gets a rebound.
Some nights he doesn't.
Right.
And you go, oh boy, this is one of Sam's nights. Pritchard's a guy that can play every night. He's going to play his tail off every night. And with one exception this year, the game this past weekend where he got no points, he's just been incredible. And I think if you're Joe Mazzulla, the other night was a signal that
Yeah.
he can end the game. I'll put him in there at the end.
Yeah, a couple of things about
Not
Pritchard.
garbage time end.
Yeah,
Right.
no. A couple of things
Competitive
about
end.
Pritchard. Number one, I think even with that 0 game, he's still number 1 in points off the bench.
Yeah.
In the league.
In the league. Number 2, he is certainly, I would say he is at the front of the conversation. NBA term, again, said over and over and over. For Sixth Man of the Year. I think he's the leading candidate.
conversation.
Oh, God. Yeah, as Frank
Am I in the conversation for anything?
As
Idiot of the year.
Frank Isola says, the conversation for MVP starts the first half, at the end of the first half of the first game.
Right.
Sixth Man of the Year conversation starts after 20 games. So that, and the other thing I would say about Pritchard to show his effectiveness this year was the 0-point game. Now, why do I say that? Doc Rivers, as we know, has a thing about Peyton Pritchard, because we listened to
That's a great story, by the
Carter
way.
and Scal. He knows Pritchard's effectiveness at the end of halves. He had that famous thing where he just put his head in his hands or his head down when Pritchard hit a shot. If you watched away from the ball in that game,
Yes.
Pritchard's defender was glued to him. He never doubled. He never did anything but play Pritchard. That's respect.
But Doc claimed that he did not mention Peyton Pritchard's name in the pregame film study.
Yeah.
He said, I did not mention him. I didn't point to him. I didn't show a clip of him. The players figured it out on their own.
Well, good for them then.
Yeah.
We'll give them the credit.
Yeah.
Not Doc.
But it was a funny story.
All right,
Yeah,
if Doc
yeah,
wants to
yeah.
pass it, I'll pass it.
Yeah.
I believe Doc.
Yeah.
I like Doc.
Yeah.
So I think that's a sign of respect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on to the gridiron.
The gridiron.
Okay.
Patriots had a good week.
Well, I want to
didn't play.
talk about Kansas City.
Oh.
They get every call and they get every break. I mean, to bring in a third string kicker at 11:30 at night to win an important game when your number one opponent for the number one seed, Buffalo Bills, have lost,
Yeah.
and to have him shank a kick, clang against the goalpost so loudly that it woke up my wife, who was sleeping on the couch sitting next to me. Bang! And have it trickle through the goalposts so that Kansas City can win at the buzzer. That was the definitive Kansas City Chief moment. They've won every single one-score game they've been in. They've gotten every call by every official and every break. So one of the debates driving into the show today that I was listening on the national radio was, I was listening to First Take actually, was, do you bet against that streak or with it? And as Dan Orlovsky said, I'm betting with it.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. They're probably going to get the number one seed. It's going to be 18 below zero in Kansas City. Some poor sap team, probably Buffalo, is going to have to go in there. And then they're not going to beat Kansas City. And then they're going to play in the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes, who makes every big play
Yep, he
in
does.
every final drive. It's extraordinary. Now, I'm a Brady fan. I'm a Patriots fan. I'm way past worrying about Kansas City having a bigger
Yeah.
dynasty than the
Right.
Patriots
Right.
because they're going to.
Yeah.
They're going to. The way this guy plays, the breaks they get, the mojo they got going, they're one of the least effective, according to several metrics. They have one of the worst big-time offenses in the NFL,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter because they know how to win. And there is such a thing as knowing how to win. We had it here for 17 years.
Yeah.
They're unbelievable. I want to just talk about them for a second.
I want to say something about them. They're getting all this, and it reminds me of something. And this is not going to go over well with Ken. It reminds me of the year the Patriots lost the Super Bowl to Philadelphia. Sorry, Ken. The Patriots for
Niagara
years,
Falls. Slowly I turn.
as we watched the Patriots over the years, we didn't think they got every call, and there were a lot. Then there was that year where I noticed early on, started telling you guys, I don't really think you guys disagreed, they were getting every call. They were winning every challenge. They were getting every break. It ended in the Super Bowl. There was a play for a touchdown that didn't go their way. It shouldn't have, by the way. So can it end? Yeah. Do I think it'll end? No. And because I don't think it'll end, I would like to see some teams say, we're going radical. Like I texted you guys last night. If that guy's got the ball over the 50-yard line with 2 minutes to go, we're letting him score. I want my offense on the field at the end of the game, not my defense. I am taking the ball out of my Holmes' hands. I am giving him the lead in that game because I'm not coming down to 1 second with that guy and not getting the ball back. I want the ball. And then I'll try to figure out how to score with no time. And if we lose, we're going to lose anyway.
Well, he kicked a field goal to win a game, but if he had needed a touchdown, he would have got the
Of
touchdown.
course he would have got the
Of course he would have
touchdown.
got the. I was listening to that game driving home from work, and I knew that whatchamacallit went up with a field goal, 16-14,
17-16.
17-16. I go, oh, they lost. They just lost.
Yeah, but there was a call near the goal line on a pass interference. That I didn't agree with. But anyway,
They are the ultimate in what my friend of mine used to call you just know game.
Yep.
What he would define that is you're watching a game and it does not matter what the score is. You just know who's going to win.
Oh, you knew.
It does
Casey
not
was
matter
gonna
what
win
the
that
score
game.
is in a Chiefs game. You just know they're going
And
to
I
win.
didn't see, and I think I had probably shut the car off and was doing something. I didn't see the field goal at the end until this morning when I woke up and watched it. And I went, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
It was going
And by the way,
100 miles an hour that way.
yeah,
Beep,
it
beep.
went through.
if they're going to lose a playoff game, it's going to have to be a blowout.
And is Eddie Edelman?
Oh no, I telling my son last night they're going to have to lose by 2 scores.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or else they won't lose.
Somebody like the Lions is just going to have to be much better than them, play like it, and be up at least 2 scores near the end of
As
the game.
Eddie Edelman said, you never bet against a streak.
Never bet against
There
the
you
streak.
go.
So let's turn to the Patriots. They're having a really difficult season. Other than Drake May, I don't see a lot to get too excited about. The last 4 games, I think, are going to be critical, not in the one-loss column, not in the development of Drake May's. He's good. Can this team play out the string with pride and dignity against 4 very difficult opponents?
Well, I think, first of all,
And what is the mojo going into the offseason if it's 3-14?
okay, let's look at a couple of things. Number one, that Buffalo lost Kansas City win, that hurt the Patriots as far as draft position, because I think the Bills might not have anything to play for in the last week. So the Patriots, if you want to win those games or you want to play well, they may have a very good chance to win that Buffalo game. So me personally, I'm not into the mojo thing.
Only Sports Nuts gives you insight like
Yeah,
that.
I'm not into the mojo thing, personally. I just want them to play well, because I think going into next year, when you tee up that ball the first game, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You better have, first of all, you better have new players.
No, I think that, Jim,
You better have new players.
I think that's not understanding the big picture. You've got ownership that's going to have to make big decisions.
Oh, yeah,
You've got
I believe
GMs.
all that.
Right, but if they remember in 1993, they won their last 4 games, and that was a huge uplift.
All right, we're talking about 2 different things.
No,
now.
but it was not just for the fans. It was
No,
huge.
we're
for
talking
the
about 2
organization.
different things. What I'm talking about is how they're going to play in game 1. You're right. The last 4 games I would agree with that. That'll determine who comes back. I think that's, and I agree with you.
To some degree,
Yeah,
yeah.
I sort of misinterpreted what you said. So I think, yes. Chris Gaspar's talked about that in the Globe, and I think it's true. That, the ownership is going to have to look at something going on in these 4 games. And a lot of it is who plays with pride the last 4 games. Are people going to care about it? People going to roll over? Yeah, I would agree with that. So they are important.
First of all, this was a good week for the Patriots. They didn't lose.
Yeah,
We didn't have to watch them lose in some weird,
good point.
crazy fashion. But I think, love Drake May. Just want to see him get better. But Paul, the one thing you've said, and I agree with you, I don't know who else to look at. Like, the roster is just so bad. There's no other, that year they won those last 4 games. They had players that we knew were pretty good.
Yep.
And that were coming back
That's
next
the big
season.
difference.
I don't know who am I looking at?
Well, right
Going
now the
forward.
Patriots. We saw this with the Red Sox. Dwight Evans leaves, and they can't find a right fielder for 10 years. And you see this with various baseball teams all the time, where they,
Can't find a
we've
position.
struggled to replace Dustin Pedroia. We just haven't figured out who's
Yeah.
our great second baseman
Right.
for 5 to 8 years.
Yeah.
The Patriots have not been able to develop wide receivers.
Oh, it's
Now, part of that,
unbelievable.
I think, in the Brady era was by design. Brady liked slot receivers, tight ends. He didn't, except for the Randy Moss era, didn't need to throw the ball. 60
Kevin Falk type receivers.
Right.
out of the
Exactly. Guys out of the
backfield.
backfield. Danny Woodhead, James White, Kevin Falk,
Yeah.
Shane Vereen.
Yeah.
They used to play to those guys, and it worked,
Yeah.
especially in cold weather. You're not chucking the ball way downfield, windy. But I think that's carried over into the post-Brady era, where they just don't seem to be able to draft them and develop them. And you see all these other teams. I mean, Nakua, where did he go in the draft? 5th round or something? The guy's an animal. Catches everything.
Amazing, yeah.
You can't tackle him. All he has to do is get a fingernail on the ball. He catches it. Sam Izzo told me that according to Pro Football Focus statistics, since 2006, Polk, our rookie wide receiver, is the worst wide receiver in the National Football League in the last 19 years.
Incredible.
By the way,
The worst.
through most of the Belichick era, he couldn't get.
But they drafted those positions Paul talked about.
Yeah, they
that was
drafted
the,
Chad Jackson.
that was
Tyquan
the,
Thornton.
That was the offset, which leads us,
They
I
got the
think,
tight
is a
ends.
great
Harry.
a great segue into the next Patriots question. With, as Don Rickles used to say to some people, I know you don't want to hear this, but what is best for the New England Patriots in the last 4 games? What is best for their future? Let's talk about what happened yesterday. They went 1-5 yesterday. How did they go 1-5? 5 of the teams they would have liked to have won lost. They did win the biggest game, though. The Jaguars beat the Tennessee Titans, who I like to call the Tuxedo because they blew the greatest nickname of all time, which would have been Tennessee Tuxedo. Their motto would have been, "We shall not fail," and the fans could have won tuxedos after the cartoon character of the games. But anyway, they beat them. What did that do? That dropped Jacksonville out of the number 1 draft position.
Right.
The number 1 draft position now is the Raiders, who need a quarterback. The New York Football Giants are 2. What do they need? A quarterback. What do the Patriots don't need? A quarterback.
Yeah.
So they could easily take Sanders and the other guy I'm no college football expert, his name escapes me right now, which will leave the Patriots, because they moved up a spot to 3rd, with the de facto number 1 pick in the draft.
Non-quarterback.
Non-quarterback
But their de facto, the guy they would take if they had the number 1 pick, because they're not taking a quarterback. They may trade. There's a team that wants one, but they would in fact have their number 1 choice on their board, which would either be McMullen, the great tall 6'5" wide receiver probably, or the favorite for the Heisman, Travis Hunter, who is a 2-way player. Okay? They are in, I believe, a 6-way tie for 3rd. At 3-10. They get the tiebreaker.
So every game they lose increases their
So
chances
you're
of
saying the last 4
drafting
games
high.
are critical?
I am saying last year it was essential. They had the 3rd. What if they had the 4th pick? They don't get Drake May.
No, they don't.
Now, again, I know we don't want to hear this, but as you said, who am I watching? I would
Right.
say Christian Gonzalez. If we're football fans, he's a great cornerback.
Yep.
Maybe 1 or 2 other defensive players. Maybe Stevenson. Maybe.
Yeah,
Other than that,
Stevenson's
I want to
slow.
see somebody.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't want him taking an offensive lineman if they're that high. I want to see somebody. Go get the lineman. Spend some of that money. You're way under the cap.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think look, if we're back in the position of thinking that they need to get more talent, then obviously losing behoove to lose, right?
That's a good one. Behooves to lose.
Right.
It used to
Did
be.
that make any sense?
What was it?
That
It
made
used to be
sense?
refuse to lose.
Yeah.
Right?
Behooves
I
them
like
to
that.
lose.
I like
Behoove
that.
to lose.
I need a T-shirt.
Yeah, there you go. Behooves to lose. That's a good
Don't
one.
edit that out.
Good one. That's
a good one.
No, I like that.
But you got the other side of it, which is you also want to know what you've got. So I suppose, and this is a simplistic way of looking at it, the best result is very competitive games, very exciting
Yes.
games
Yes.
where they find out they have some players here and there, but they lose.
Yeah, you could do that easily.
And that Drake May just keeps learning and getting better.
Easily.
That's really the
Easily.
theme of this season to me right now. Just watching him get experience.
Although
get better.
I pledge not to do this year, and I still probably won't, unless it comes down to the final game.
You want him to win.
Yeah.
Or
but,
play good.
But
Play well.
it's 4 friggin' games.
Right.
It's
We'll-
all about
we'll get
next
through
year.
it.
The thing Paul pointed out at the beginning that I misunderstood, it's all about that.
Yeah.
It's all about who are we going to bring back. This is what you do when you're bad.
Right.
Who are we going to bring back?
Yep.
Who are we just letting go? Who can we get something for? And what can we do? This is the winning and losing to me. I hate to say it, but they're better off if they lose because
I hate
Yeah, but your butt's not sitting in that stadium like mine, freezing to death.
suck it up, will you? You had 6 titles. You had 9 AFC game. What was it? 9 AFC championship games.
Cowboy
Suck
up.
it up.
Yeah, cowboy.
And if you're that cold, open the cave up so we can come over. Come on. Because next year, what did you
moved to
say? Your
lose.
butt in the seat? Your butt's going to be cheering for Travis Hunter or McMullen going, yes, just like this year, you guys are out there. Drake May is our only hope.
they're taking a left tackle, Jim. Just be prepared.
All right, I want to do one last thing before we sign off.
Just kidding.
It's
of course.
shocking.
Okay, let's
I'm gonna
end with
bring-
the shock.
I'm going to bring up the Boston Bruins for a second.
Sure.
Okay, and this is a dig at Felger and Maz. They're not happy with the way the Bruins are playing. Okay. The Bruins fired their coach, and I believe they're 8-3 since they fired him.
Yeah.
They played that many games?
Yeah. Take it.
I'd take that.
It's not beautiful. It's not
That's a
the
great
80s Islanders. It's not the 72 Bruins. They're winning.
8-3.
I can watch the games again.
Yeah.
I can enjoy the games again. They're in the games again.
Yeah. They were losing 7-2.
They were losing all the time before they
By
fired
big
Jim
numbers.
Montgomery.
Yes.
Okay? So is this guy, going to be the answer, long-term answer as a coach? I don't know. But, oh, my God. I mean, you're complaining that they've won 8 out of 11 games since they fired
What's
their
the
coach?
complaint?
Oh, it's still, they're beating nobodies. They've still got the same problems. I don't even know what their complaints are. They're not happy. They fired the coach, which was a decision that you knuckleheads agreed with, and then they started winning.
Yeah. They say it's
What else? As
the new
LBJ
coach
said,
bump.
As LBJ said, when the Republicans would give him a hard time, the Democrats beat Hitler and Tojo. What the hell else are we supposed to do?
One of the complaints I've heard from Bertrand was, well, they're only winning because they're getting the new coach bump. I don't care why they're winning, but they were losing 8-2 and 9-3, and they were getting blown out. They were not playing competitive hockey.
They're winning.
And now they're 8-3.
They've won their last 4 games.
Yeah.
That is the best streak in the National Hockey League as of right now.
And they're also back in the playoff
Yeah,
conversation.
they're in the.
No, they're in the playoffs.
they're in
Yeah,
the
that's what I mean.
playoffs.
That's what I mean. They
Yeah,
were out of the
Yeah.
playoffs, which is in the NHL
If
is
the season
hard
ended
to
today.
do.
Yes.
They're back in, and as we all know, I mean, they're not a Stanley Cup team, but as we all know, in the NHL playoffs, this is no great observation. Get a hot goalie, you might win a round.
Oh, get in
You
the
might
hockey.
win the cup.
hockey.
It's the most random of the
Most
sports.
random of
Yeah,
all.
so I mean,
8-speed.
I didn't even
every
realize
year.
it was that good. I'll take that any time of the year, actually.
Yeah.
Never mind new coach or not new coach. I'll take that any time of the
Bump
year.
from the new coach. They're just getting the bump from the. Okay, good.
By the
Okay.
way, I have one other Bruins observation if we have a
Let's
slight
wrap it up.
second.
Yeah.
I watched the Bruins Centennials, and I enjoyed it. It was good.
Yeah.
But I have to say, has any team that has won less championships, okay, acted as if they had won like what the Celtics or
Yeah,
the
they're the
Canadians
Yankees.
or the Yankees
Right, they
have
do.
won? And it's all built around this Bruins culture. And I always ask myself, that culture has produced one cup since 72
Right.
and a style of play that they take tremendous pride in, but they usually only win cups when they get away from it.
Right.
I mean, yeah, they were the big bad Bruins, but Johnny Busick was on their second line. He's a Hall of Famer. You know, the Chara team had David Krejci as their second center.
Right.
They were dominant. They were really, really good.
Yeah.
And they went to Game 7.
And they went to, I mean, it's like, I like teams that celebrate history. I enjoyed, I love, anytime Bobby shows up, put me in front of the TV.
Yeah.
When Phil shows up, put me in front. I loved it, but, you know, really, it does get a little
Well,
bit.
I have, Jim, great observation.
Yeah.
I've said for years, deepest loyalist fan base of any of the teams.
Of all
Oh, I
time.
agree.
I mean, there is The Celtics, God love them. We all love them. We're fanatical.
Yeah, but we didn't go during the
No.
MLK
Our
years.
fan base, the Celtics fan base is front runner-ish. The Red Sox fan base, I don't know what it is now. You go to the games and it's 19-year-olds looking at Instagram. The Patriot fan base will turn on that team 1 or 2 more years like this. And you're already starting to see the upper deck was empty last couple weeks ago. But the Bruins, they're going to pack that place. They're going to buy the jerseys. I've been to Boston several times for dinners and so forth during Bruins games. The city is electric with Bruins gear. Yeah. Every bar, every restaurant, people on street corners selling Bruins jerseys. Celtics aren't like that. They're not like that.
It's a different fan base. The Bruins are the
and
most.
It's women, it's men, it's young people, it's old people, it's grandfathers and grandchildren. You're so right, Jim. It's a thing. And it's celebrated as if it's a dynasty, but that's not really what it's been. It's been like a family.
All credit to the
like
fans.
a Bruins family.
Great, incredible, loyal fan base.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
all credit to the fans.
Sometimes their numbers aren't great on Nesson, but okay. But the place is packed.
Yeah.
The stadium is packed. And like you said, there's a buzz around that.
And, a lot of that is very effective marketing to create an image, to cultivate that image, to keep that image, to milk it to its nth degree, to sell the team in that image, the big bad Bruins. I mean, there are years where they're not the tough guys.
Yeah, and it always kills me when
they don't have a tough guy
when
on
they
the
start
team
to
most of the
lose.
time.
That talk about image building. That is always the first thing people cite.
Right. They don't hit enough.
And I'm like, they don't have any talent.
Yeah, they're not scoring goals.
They can hit everybody they want. They don't score. Like I've always said for years about the Bruins. Somebody will come to the Bruins and they'll go, he doesn't back check enough. And I always say, they never say he doesn't score enough. Like they'll get a goal scorer like Tyler Sagan and they'll say, and I don't know if they said this about him, but he doesn't back check. He doesn't play D. And I'm like, have you ever said someone doesn't score enough?
Right.
Other than the famous Cam Neely quote that you can't win a hockey game 0-0. But back to your point about marketing, very good point. They've been brilliant. Yeah. I mean, I
know we're going to move on. We're going to end this and wrap this up, but maybe someday we do a little talking about Cam Neely and what's his name?
Don Sweeney,
because they just don't win ever.
Yeah,
and these guys, and even Sinden didn't win from 72 to 2015.
Every time they fire a coach, 11. Which is not a lot, I always think Harry's going to come down and coach for the rest of the year. Yeah. But
how many times
not
did
really.
he do that?
Oh,
like Johnny Pesky.
Classic.
Managed the Red Sox like 13
Harry.
times.
Classic
Whatever manager
Harry,
would get fired. Okay, that's it for today's show. Thank you for joining us here on Sports Nuts. For Jim and Ken, I'm Paul. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching Boston Sports Nuts. You can find all of our episodes available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. For more information, go to westwoodmediacenter.tv or follow Boston Sports Nuts on Facebook, Instagram, and X.